Hello everybody, and welcome back to Toronto by Nicola. So, as anyone who knows me at all can tell you, I love film. If you watch a movie with me, I am always the person who's researching the movie the entire time. I will talk your ear off about any romantic comedy or golden age film or Hitchcock movie. I just love it so much. I volunteer at a movie theater, so it just makes sense that living in a city where so many wonderful movies are made, I do a video on some Toronto spots that are featured in some of my favorite films that have been filmed here, because there have been a lot of films made here. In fact, my roommate works in film. She's a grip. So the first movie I'm going to start with was nominated for quite a few Oscars a few years ago now. It's called The Shape of Water. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend. It's from the same director who did Pan's Labyrinth. It's about a woman who doesn't speak, and she is a janitor or a cleaning lady at a research facility. And at the research facility, she sees this man who's like half sea creature, half man, and pretty much the movie is about her and him and a whole journey. And it was filmed right here. To start, this is just the outsides of the buildings, really, this part, but the outside of the research facility, it is actually the John Andrews building at the Scarborough U of T campus. So if you ever are on campus, you can see the outside of the research facility from the movie. Also, in the movie, the man creature goes to the movie theater. He runs into a movie theater, and the outside of the theater is actually Massey Hall. And in the movie theater, inside shots are actually Elgin Theater. And it's still gorgeous then, just like it is now. Also, this is somewhere we see him up a couple times, the Lakeview restaurant. So a lot of the streets were turned, a lot of the shops on streets in Toronto were turned into old school looking diners and old school looking shops and whatnot, but one in particular is the Lakeview restaurant, which is at Dundas West and Ossington. This building is used in a lot of movies. You actually see it pop up quite often. But in this one, it was called, It was called Dixie Doug's Diner. And they did a really good job of making the front look like it was a really old diner, which is super cool. And then lastly, they also filmed a lot in Hamilton, but lastly that I'm going to bring up in Toronto is that there was a lot of films or scenes filmed at the docks, because he was a sea creature in the water. So a lot of scenes filmed around the docks. And those docks were actually in the east end of Toronto at Lakeshore East. They were in like the Don River area. So there you go, there's another place. The next movie I want to talk about is The Santa Claus, the old Tim Allen Christmas movie that you probably watched as a kid. This movie holds a close place in my heart because actually a lot of it was filmed in Oakville, which is where I grew up. So the town that Tim Allen's character lives in with his son and his ex-wife, the town they all live in, is actually downtown Oakville. In one scene you can see very early on in the film, Tim Allen's character is driving down the street, and a lot of the shops that you see in that aerial view actually are still there today. There's a butcher shop and a Swiss Interiors, and they're actually all still there. Not everything is still there, but there's quite a few of them that are still around. And then in Toronto, there is a scene where he's sitting at a park and watching his son play soccer. Actually, he might not be in this scene, but he's sitting at a park for sure. And a little girl comes up to him and says, she's like scooching closer to him and closer to him, and then she pats him on the shoulder and says, "I want ballet slippers." And in that scene, that is Hillcrest Park in Toronto, which is very cool. And also that little girl who pats him on the shoulder grew up to be one of my dance teachers as I got older. And then there's a couple scenes in an elementary schools, and those schools in real life are John Ross Robertson School and Blythewood Public School. So there's different scenes shot in schools, and they are both there. Lastly, the outside of the police station is actually Runnymede Chronic Health Center, I believe. Sorry, Runnymede Chronic Care Hospital. So that's the outside of the police station. Not a police station, really a hospital. But yeah, they do a really good job of changing it into a police station. And actually, another thing is one of my mom's teachers was one of the cops in the movie. It's the thing about when things are filmed in your hometown, you know people, I guess. Next movie I want to talk about is a musical. Actually, the next two I'm going to talk about are musicals. And this one is Hairspray, which I love. I love Hairspray. I've started memorizing the songs when I was 6 years old, and it's a fantastic musical. If you haven't watched Hairspray and you like musicals, watch Hairspray. So the Hardy Har Hut, which is where Tracy's dad works and owns this comedy shop, is actually Gail's snack bar. So it's actually still there. As far as I'm aware, it's still there. Things kind of changed during the pandemic. It's at 539 Eastern Avenue in Toronto, and when you see it, and then you see the Hardy Har Hut, you can clearly see that it's the same location. It's pretty cool. A lot of the scenes actually in the movie, a lot of the street scenes were actually filmed right near me at Dundas West and Roncesvalles. So they turned pretty much that whole area into early 1960s looking diners and stores and shops and restaurants. And the Starbucks that's at the corner of Dundas West and Ronci actually is what they changed into Mr. Pinky's Hideaway, which is a store in Hairspray. It's where Tracy and her mom go to get dresses, and there's this whole dance number called Hey Mama, Welcome to the 60s, and that was all filmed up that Dundas West and Ronci strip and area, and that outside is Mr. Pinky's. So Starbucks into a 1960s dress store, pretty impressive. I don't know if it was a Starbucks back then, but it's definitely a Starbucks now. And again, lastly, we see the Lakeview restaurant. So the Lakeview restaurant pops up again here as a diner that Tracy and Mrs. Turnblatt go to after they've tried on their dresses from the Welcome to the 60s number, and they go in there and run into Mrs. Von Tussle, who is the wonderful Michelle Pfeiffer, and Amber, who is played by Brittany Snow, and they make rude remarks. But the point is, it's in the Lakeview Diner. It's actually inside of it, and they transformed it. It just looks very cool. It really looks like it's like a 1950s diner, which is pretty awesome. The next movie I'm going to talk about actually isn't a musical. Sorry, I made a mistake before. The next movie I want to talk about is My Big Fat Greek Wedding, which is a hilarious movie. And if you haven't seen it, I'm saying this for all of them. If you haven't seen it, watch them. These are just movies that I enjoy. So one thing that really stands out in My Big Fat Greek Wedding is their house. So their house looks very Greek. It's like white and blue, and it looks like it was just taken out of Greece and put into a different city. And they're supposed to be in they're supposed to be in Chicago, but that house actually does exist here. They didn't make a lot of changes to the exterior of it for the movie. Actually, it really does look like that. It's on St. Clair. And so you can see that house at any point in time, but that's their house in the movie. The main character goes to school at one point in the movie at Harry S. Truman School, and that school is actually Ryerson University. It's just a sign over it, but that is Ryerson U, which is awesome. When the two lead characters go on a romantic date and they're walking along the pretty bridge with the water and it's all lovely, that's actually the harbor front. It's supposed to be a Chicago bridge, but It's gorgeous, and it's right at the harbor front, which, as we know, is beautiful. And a lot of the outside shots, a lot of the street shots, and like the restaurants and whatnot were filmed in the Danforth area. And the last movie I'm planning on talking about today is Chicago. Chicago's come up a lot. I guess just these two movies. Anyway, it's Chicago. Chicago is the musical with Renee Zellweger and Catherine Zeta-Jones, which I believe Catherine Zeta-Jones won her Oscar for this movie. I'll fact check myself on that one. And Richard Gere and John C. Reilly and Queen Latifah, and oof, that cast, that music, those numbers. Anyway, so Chicago was actually filmed here, which is very cool because I love that movie. It was filmed a lot in the Distillery District, so the Cook County Jail was actually the outside of one of the old Distillery District buildings that has the green looking cells on it, so pretty much where you go when you take your Christmas pictures at the Christmas market was the outside of a jail in Chicago. So that's one location. The Onyx Theater, which is actually the opening of the film where we first meet our two leading ladies, and Velma Kelly does that all that jazz number, was actually filmed in the Distillery District as well, in the, I can never say this right, in the Gooderham and Worts Distillery. I don't know if I'm butchering that. I'm so sorry if I am. I've always wondered if that's how it's pronounced. The Gooderham and Worts Distillery, and apparently I learned this researching is that they actually have used that a lot in different films, the inside of the building to film a lot as studio space. So that Onyx Theater we first meet them in, that is in the distillery, that is there at that distillery. Billy Flynn is the lawyer played by Richard Gere, and the inside of his office is actually the Oak Room in Casa Loma, which I believe is also used as an office in an X-Men movie, but I'm not overly familiar with the X-Men movies. But yeah, so his office in the movie is supposed to be this really rich, fancy lawyer in this like grand office, and that makes sense why his office would be in this giant castle. And it is, yeah, it's the Oak Room, and it's a gorgeous room. It would be, I would love to have that be my office. And then the outside of his office, so before he goes into the building, he pulls up to the building, and it's actually the Beaux Arts Canada Life building. Beaux Arts Canada Life building. The outside of the courthouse, so there's a big number called We Both Reach for the Gun, and it's when Renee Zellweger's character is doing an interview, and was also where we meet Christina Baranski's character. Anyway, she does this whole number, like puppets, and it's it's supposed to be a courthouse, but it's actually the Ontario Yes, I don't know why I questioned myself. Ontario Legislative Building, but it really does look like a courthouse. Like they did a good job. And then lastly, we're back to the Elegant Theater, like where we started, and so we end off. Where we started this video with The Shape of Water was in the Elegant Theater. So we end off the movie with a big performance by Renee Zellweger's character and Catherine Zeta-Jones's character, Velma Kelly, Roxy Hart, and they perform this big end of the movie number, and that is also inside of the Elegant Theater. Greatest thing about the Elegant Theater, I talked about this in another video, is that it's super old and beautiful inside, so it's no surprise to me that it was used as a film set for a lot of old movies, because it's easy to transform because it's already so gorgeous and it already has that aesthetic. So these are 5 movies that I really love that were filmed in the city. Of course, there have been so many more. Good Will Hunting was filmed here. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, I didn't talk about it even though I love it, but some scenes were filmed here, but mostly inside studio stuff. There's a lot. I recommend that you do some research on it because it's really interesting. Before I end this video, I want to give a shout out to a couple websites. The Torontoist, they have a section called Real Toronto, R-E-E-L, Real Toronto, and they talk a lot about film sets in Toronto, so I want to cite them because I use them for a lot of research. And also the website that's literally called Movie Locations. Got a lot of information from them too. These are all films that I knew were filmed here, and I had ideas of where, but these resources I used to like make sure that what I was telling you was true, and to like learn new things because I didn't know all of it. So yeah, I highly recommend you check out those two websites if you're interested in learning more. I didn't mention every single site for every single movie because it just would have been a very long video. Anyway, if you can think of a movie that you love that was also filmed in Toronto, comment down below. Also, please comment down below if you like this style of video, or if there's a different kind of video that you'd like to see. I'm always looking for new ideas and suggestions, and I want to make content that you guys enjoy. So please do so. And with that, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.